Story number 1. I was about 12, my brother about 7. Give or take about a year. Dad parked right in front of the store, pointed through the glass door at the bread stand, said he needed to get some bread and would be back in exactly 12 seconds. While he was inside, my brother and I were chatting, fighting, and I was cut off by a tapping on the window. I thought maybe Dad forgot his keys and was locked out. Next to me was a leathery man wearing more leather and tattoos on his scalp just glaring at us. Arms wrapped up around himself, and he was looking around him, throwing weight from one foot to the other. The car park was empty, and he motioned for me to get out of the car, or roll the window down, and my stupid brother told me I should. I told him shut up and keep still. I shook my head at the man and saw the car was unlocked, panicked and locked it. He tried the handle and I thought I was going to die. The little jerk in the back seat is still telling me to do what the man says. Now he's babbling about knowing him. He's probably the uncle of some kid from school. I distinctly remembered the phrase Billy's uncle is a robber. I'm pretty sure it's him. We should talk to him. I swear to goodness I could have thrown out the whole child out the window. Well, the dude steps away from the car at this time, still all shifty looking, and checks the license plate. Then he jumps into a running van with tinted windows that have been idling perpendicular to us. There was a woman in the driver's seat just glaring at us. I just remember how mad they both looked, like they hated us, and how focused they looked too, like they were working on a math problem they didn't want to be caught doing. Anyways, after he jumped in, they drove off. The next day, an Amber Alert was out for an attempted child abduction in the same parking lot. The police did not take us seriously when we called, but I guess he tried again the next day and was taken seriously. Story number 2. Back around the year 2000, I worked at a sandwich shop at a mall. I was into experimenting with some drugs at the time, and a female coworker I had conversations about doing a certain drug with at some point wasn't really sure she was serious. Guys, she was an absolute 10. I was a 6 at best. I finally get hooked up with the said drug, and we set up a night at her house, just her and I. A couple nights before we were to have fun, we closed the store down together. She had these 3 guys that she said were her brothers waiting for her at the mall entrance. She then confirmed the date, time, and location before she left as I locked down the shop. I pretended to go back in for something, then spied on them as she approached them. She gave a suspicious nod to them and high-fived the biggest guy before they walked out. Well, this raised a major red flag. The night of, I tell her that I might not be able to come because I was tired, and she convinces me out of what I felt was panic on her part to get me to come. She confirms everything again on the landline phone. This was before I had a cell phone, and well, I head over. The directions put me on in the middle of nowhere to a dirt road that led into the mountains. At this point, I start freaking out as I'm probably a mile from the house, and I decide to park somewhere in some thick bush off the road enough to be hidden. I said if nothing weird happens in the next 15 minutes, I'll continue to the house. Within 3 minutes, headlights come up from where I came and pass by me. It was a truck with those same 3 dudes from the mall riding in the back with shotguns in hand. This was the only time I ever prayed to God and they would not see my car. They continued on with no issue. I'm 100% sure what might have happened if I went to that house is I might be dead if I went according to her plan. I ignored her messages for 3 days. Then when she came back to work, she asked what happened. I told her I got lost and some other excuse. Never discussed anything with her after that and had no issues with those guys again. I end up getting transferred to a different store a few weeks later ASAP. And I still count my blessings to this day. Story number 3. Okay, so I dated a girl. Just a few months online, and suddenly she vanishes and deletes all her social media, saying it's because of college. A dude pops up, looking for her, swearing he was her boyfriend, but me saying I was too was met with, "Oh, well, you're a liar," and he blocked me. She returned 6 months later and said he was a crazy dude who would always track her down, and my gut said she's lying. But it sounded plausible since he hunted down all her friends and family, and I should have listened to my gut. One day, she goes missing again, and her mom left a bunch of people nasty messages about us, quote, taking advantage of her daughter. We were all confused, so I began digging around to figure out what the heck's going on, and I found her family. Turned out she was deemed incompetent by a psychiatrist, and her mom was given guardianship of her. I found a couple of old groups that she was in. Turned out there was 5 to 6 other guys she was having relationships with, 4 boyfriends, 1 daddy, and a master, whatever that means. She told each guy they were her love, then told stories about all the other boys being nothing but bullies, trying to wreck her relationships. Turns out, I wasn't guy 1. I was guy number 2. The crazy one that number 1 was looking for. She only returned after breaking up with him. When she returned once more, me and many other of the guys dropped her all at once. She then sent me pictures of her pulling out a hidden knife and, well, hurting herself, with the caption, "When they find me, I'm making sure my last messages are to you so you'll go to prison for murder." Well, I called one of her family members and they busted through her door and took her to the hospital. The last thing I heard was that she was put in a psychiatric ward. The family had a talk with me later about it, and they all explained that she had a local boyfriend. And when things went south, she even faked abuse allegations as revenge. The courts did not go her way, and he went after her for defamation of character. He called it off because he just wanted her to go away, and they promised to do so. She was vanishing from online because she kept going after him and all his social circles by using fake accounts. Her parents deleted them all non-stop just to stop her from getting them in major trouble. So, I actually ended up being put into a psych ward over the situation. Nobody should see a person they love attempt to harm themselves just to hurt somebody. After I got out and onto medicine and strong therapy, I get a message from her parents. Well, hold yourself together for this one. They asked me how I was doing and was hoping I'd try again with the girl in the future. They said I was a good guy and she needs it. Then, they even asked that I keep her revenge unfaked abuse allegations to myself because, quote, they did not want it to make her lose all her internet friends. Guys, I blocked all of them, changed all my account names and pictures. I took screenshots and told everyone I possibly knew that had any kind of connection to her to stay away. To this day, I still have panic attacks when random people message me because I immediately think it's her and she's gonna try to take revenge. At least I did not marry her, so you could say I dodged that bullet. But it feels like so many were shot and only a few grazed me. I never completely recovered from that absolute nightmare. Story number 4. A guy I met at my old job seemed really sweet and would talk to me during my shifts almost every day. I'm a female and he's a male, only a couple years older than me. One day he asked for my number and liked being his friend, so I gave it to him. He starts texting me and we'd have casual conversations about our day. After a while though, he'd start showing up at my work with candies and flowers. I thought it was nice, but kind of weird since, hey, we were just friends. Eventually, he ends up confessing his feelings for me. But I wasn't looking for a relationship of any kind, so I just cut it off. A couple months go down the line, and there was a party at his house. I went with some of my friends who were also friends with him, and I was hesitant on going, but my friends convinced me. At some point in the night, He was absolutely wasted and pushed me in a corner and starts telling me all the dirty crap he wished he could do to me. I was extremely uncomfortable, and luckily got away from him and ended up leaving. Never talked to that jerk again. Well, some time goes by, and I notice he hasn't come into my work at all recently, but thought he was maybe just embarrassed about what happened with me at his house. Come to find out, he was on house arrest for abusing a minor. Well, I ran into him at a grocery store while he still had his ankle monitor on and awkwardly said, "Hi." He then went on to say, "I'm sure you heard about what happened. She was just talking about being a freak over text, but didn't want to deliver in person, so I had to show her what a real freak is like." Wow, I was mortified and just walked away. I later found out that the details of what he did to that poor girl, and well, it was absolutely horrific. He's in jail now. Story number 5. I was hanging out with 2 friends from work over a weekend. It's common for us to go to the mall first and watch a movie when we want to go somewhere for a casual hangout. That was the original plan for our hangout, but for some unknown reason, I had a weird gut feeling which did not warrant any worry or anxiety, just one of those impulse thoughts that you get. But I still suggested we watch a movie first. It wasn't a big deal. Which we did, so my friends agreed, and we went to the movies. If I remember right, we watched Fantasy Island. Guys, during the movie, we get a call from the supervisor from work, coincidentally at the same time. By the way, we're in the military, so if we get a call from a higher-up, it's the best right now to answer the phone, even if it's on the weekend. Some may say we would not have to answer the phone, but we usually don't get work-related calls on our off days, so receiving a call from a supervisor meant something important happened that requires our attention and possible ASAP going in. So, we stepped out of the theater to pick up our phones and was told that the mall we were intending to go to just had an active shooter. So the call was to make sure we were safe. An accountability thing since it was in our area, and the mall was relatively small compared to other malls in our area, so if we went there first, there's a high chance we would have gotten caught up in it. To summarize, my friends and I avoid getting caught up in the middle of an active shooter because of a gut feeling that I had. Story number 6. In March of 2020, I was backpacking in South America. Not my first rodeo, and I've been on the road for about 2 months already. I was following what was not yet a pandemic because I know Wuhan pretty well, and I have close relatives in Europe. North and South America wasn't effective much yet. My Santiago-Toronto return ticket was for March the 17th, a week before my husband, who was already back in Canada, suggested extending my trip, since things were apparently better in South America. It was hard to reach Air Canada, so we were just taking turns calling to change the date. And then, the atmosphere suddenly changed in Santiago. It was very weird. I went from, we're fine, to, holy crap, we're in trouble. I called my husband and told him I have to be on that March 17th plane because suddenly I have to go home or else. Well, the last few days in Santiago were crazy, and I was one of the lucky few with a return ticket flight before flight cancellations and border closures. Glad I did not change my ticket. Story 7. My family has always been happy, keep to themselves type, and this must be a trait passed down through generations. We have a story that's been retold hundreds of times regarding my great-uncle and his unfortunate demise back in the 30s. From what I've gathered, he was another one of those cheerful guys who avoided confrontation at all cost. But he did enjoy his time at the local tavern, despite the crazy happenings that small-town bars are known for. He would go with a friend after work almost every Friday. On this particular occasion, he and his friend had found their spot at the end of the bar, and started in on a couple of drinks. The locals filtered in through the night and it all seemed normal until the town drunk got into an altercation with the guy sitting next to him at the other end of the bar. Well, the fight escalated to the point where the drunk guy pulled a gun on the guy sitting next to him. The guy was shot straight through his upper body, and the drunk was instantly tackled and got his gun taken away. Meanwhile, everyone in the bar rushed to the aid of the man who had been shot. Everyone except my great uncle. The bullet had passed through the man's body and continued on its path, hitting my great uncle in the neck. He slumped over the bar, but nobody, including his friend, realized what happened. They were too busy attending to the first man while my great uncle bled out. That man actually survived the gunshot while my great uncle died, right there in his regular seat at the end of the bar. Story number 8. A guy named Steve. Fake name, of course. Steve was a college dude and had asked me to go to the jewelry row. Sorry if I spelt that wrong, as I was at the time a major in jewelry, and he was interested in majoring in it. Jewelers Row is where all the jewelry shops are in the city. I had a bad feeling, but said yes anyways to be polite. Later that day, I was talking to a girl in the hallway while waiting for my next class. She was in one of my classes, so we had already known each other for a good month or so by then. Let's call her Kat. One of Kat's friends and I were chilling and chatting when out of nowhere Steve appeared. He went up to ask and started asking to speak to her to explain that she had misunderstood what he had said. She kept denying him and asking him to leave. Luckily, after the third "leave me alone," he finally left. By now, I was worried and confused, so I asked her what happened and if she was okay. She and her friend explained that Steve had been stalking her for a while. Not really like a light version either. I mean full on following her at night, creepy messages by different accounts type stalking. Well, I tried to pry more to find out how it happened, but she didn't feel comfortable talking about it, so I left it be. I then told her about how Steve had asked me to go to Jewelers Row with them and asked if I should go. Well, they said a hard no. It was a horrible idea. So, I texted Steve later that night and told him that a trusted friend had said that he was not trustworthy, so I don't feel comfortable hanging out with him alone, as I trust my friend more, and he actually never replied. We proceeded to ignore each other for the rest of the semester, though we still have a week left before classes end. Kat did give me an update and explained what happened a month later into class. He had asked her and another friend to go to Jewelers Row with him. After that, he starts to absolutely haunt her. It wasn't bad at first, but over time it got really bad. She ends up getting some type of restraining order on him, and I'm happy that she was able to get it resolved, and that she warned me. It's so awful she had to go through all that, but hey, that's to her. I wasn't able to avoid this massive nuke. I will be forever grateful to that.